back with season 5 as it shows the Terminus people as they got taken away from their own place because they were trying to give it to so many people. And we cut back to her team as they're trying to kill everyone they can. They end up opening the top and dropping a stun grenade. Rick ends up getting dazed as he's walking through and seeing people saw through bodies. We end up getting the gist of this place as Rick sees the kid that him and Carol found on that run. But unlucky for him, he ends up being first. They whack him in the head with the bat and slice his throat. As it's about to be Glenn, he ends up stopping him, asking how many kills he's got. They don't remember as the leader tries to get Rick to tell him where he put those bags earlier. Which, look at Rick, he's not gonna tell him. And they're about to go right back to it as they end up hearing an explosion go off. And we end up cutting earlier back with Carol and Tyrese as they're late but on their way to Terminus. As we see one of the dudes is trying to lead all the walkers away. He talks to the Terminus people about how they have Carl and Michonne, and Carol ends up popping up just in time. So she goes on her own little mission dressing up like a walker, while for some dumb reason Tyrese stays with Judith with this dude. Like, really? Carol finally gets to the fence and sees that Rick and the others are getting put in the slaughterhouse at this moment, so she ends up having a little plan. She ends up shooting the gas tank and shooting a perfect firework as it blows up all the walkers. But little does she know they actually helped her team. As the Butchers were too busy looking for the leader, they end up getting killed off by Rick. And that's where they see that these people are bloodthirsty cannibals. Carol ends up making her way in as she sees all of the loot that they took from people. And as she's looking, she finds Rick's watch and Daryl's crossbow. She ends up getting stopped by the leader as she ends up shooting her once. They end up falling and chasing after each other. But Carol gets the best of her as she ends up shooting her in the leg and leaving her for walkers. Of course, Tyrese was stupid, so the dude ended up getting his hands on the baby's neck as he makes Tyrese leave. But of course, dude ain't too smart. He ends up hearing nothing as Tyrese comes in tackling him and beating the crap out of him. As Eugene kind of goes a little into depth with how he's going to stop the zombie apocalypse, Rick ends up showing up just in time. Everyone gets out as they take down walkers and jumping the fence. They finally end up getting out. Rick finally gets all the guns and says they need to go back and kill them all. They all tell Rick that they're not going to do that. But they all stop talking as they finally see Carol. Because remember, Rick had to send her off in season 4 when she killed Tyrese's woman. Rick figures out that she's the one that basically saved all of their lives. But it gets even better as Carol takes Rick to his daughter and Sasha to her brother. But as all of her team gets reunited, Rick says they need to get going. But we end up seeing the whole team as they make their way to their next place, while Rick makes sure to leave a new sign for the sanctuary. No sanctuary. Now we cut back to then and how they became who they were. These people took their place over and ended up sexually assaulting all of the women, taking turns. They tell all of them that they're going to end up dying somehow. And that's where they end up ending the episode, as they think that they're going to survive anything. But if you actually paid attention to see that the episode wasn't over with, we see that Morgan Jones is still alive. And he's finally trying to join Rick's team. And we're back with episode 2 as they see the smoke from Terminus getting farther away. As our group's pushing through, they end up stopping and having a little break so everybody can eat. While they're doing that, Rick and Tara end up talking as he thanks her for saving Glenn and wants her to join their team and be a part of it. Rick says that he knows that what she did was wrong, but at the time it probably was right, and now they're going to be joining her team. He asks if she'll have them all, in which she says of course. But while Daryl and Carol end up talking, Daryl, being super smart, ends up hearing a snap as he knows someone's watching them. And it seems like he's definitely right. Looks like Bob and Sasha are getting a little bit closer while Tyrese is just bobbing, I guess. And as the team keep moving, they end up finding a priest named Gabriel. They save his life because he doesn't know how to fight a walker. But Rick thinks this dude is really creepy because he acts so weird, but in reality, he's actually just a normal guy. They end up getting taken back to his church as they check every room like it's Call of Duty. They don't end up finding anything, but Gabriel ends up saying that he knows a place where there's food. While Abraham's still trying to leave now, Glenn explains to him that we're going to do that soon. We just got to get everybody on board. Rick explains to Carl that he's going with Gabriel to find this food, but if he has friends and dies, he doesn't want Carl to come for him. So Gabriel leads Bob, Rick, Michonne, and Sasha as they go to the food place. And while Glenn, Tara, and Maggie go on a run, they end up finding gun suppressors. Gabriel ends up getting them to the place as Rick checks around to see if anyone's there. No one ends up being there, but a stench comes from a pool. And of course, the food has to be at the bottom with all of the walkers. So as they all get in the water, everyone takes out the walkers looking for the food. Gabriel ends up getting scared and almost runs and dies. While Bob gets dragged in by a walker, Sasha tries to save him as he ended up getting a hold of the walker and kills it. That's where Rick finally feels comfortable to say that Gabriel did help him with all this food. So as everyone's about to get ready to eat their delicious meal for the night, Abraham ends up making a toast and says that they're all going to end up making it as they're going to stop this apocalypse for all. And of course, Rick, Judith, and everyone's in. But for some odd reason, Carol ends up coming outside, so Daryl ends up trying to see what she's doing. But while they end up talking, the car that took Beth ends up driving off, so Daryl and Carol get in the car and chase after him as fast as possible. And Bob's just sitting outside thinking that he's hard stuff, I guess, until all of a sudden he ends up getting sick and passing out. He wakes up and sees that the cockroaches didn't die. He talks to Bob as he says that he never wanted to be a type of person to become a cannibal, but they gotta do what they gotta do, as Bob looks down and sees he has no leg, and it looks like on the menu tonight is Bob Kebabs. And we're back with episode 3, seeing all of these walkers as everyone's eating Bob's meat. They all think they're so wise with the words they say, until last second we see that Bob actually got bit by that walker back when they were getting the food. So everyone starts to throw that up as Sasha tries to use her night scope to find Bob. So they all end up going back to Gabriel thinking that he's the one that took Bob. Obviously he says no, he'd never have a part in something like that. As they end up hearing a sound outside, they find that Bob's passed out. They get him inside as he shows everyone where he got bit earlier from. And that's why he was being so nice to Sasha, because that was the last time he's going to be able to spend with her. Abraham says that they need to leave now because Eugene's not safe, but Rick says they're not leaving without Daryl or Carol. So Glenn stops both of them and says that he's going to go with Abraham next morning, and that Rick and the others can stay and look for Daryl and Carol. Rick tries to choose for him, but Glenn says it's already chosen. Sasha and Bob sit and talk all night long, until Rick, Sasha, and some of the others end up finding that they're at the church, so they leave to look for them. But little did they know that all the cannibals were coming to their church at the same time. And the only problem with this is it's only Carl, Gabriel, Judith, and some of the others. They almost end up leaving, but end up hearing Judith screaming. But as the dude ends up trying to go for Carl, he ends up getting his finger shot off, and we see that was Rick. They ended up coming back, so Rick does him a little favor and beats his head in with a hatchet, while Michonne beats one head in and Abraham beats the other. Now it's the next day, so Bob doesn't have too much time, so everyone says their last goodbyes. He tells Rick to survive and get Eugene to where he needs to go so the apocalypse can finally end. And then Tyrese has to do the job. Everyone's about to leave as Abraham, Eugene, Rosita, Maggie, Glenn, and Tara end up going, while Rick, Sasha, Michonne, and all the others end up staying. So Tyrese helps Rick with some graves. At the end of the day, Gabriel ends up coming out to Michonne saying the quiet inside was probably the happiest he's been, while Michonne, ended up being a tracker, ends up hearing something telling Gabriel to go in. She ends up finding out that it's Daryl, and she asks, "Where's Carol?" And that's when Daryl tells someone to come out. And we're back with episode 4, finally waking up as Beth. We see that she's actually located in a hospital with Dawn, the leader, and a doctor. They tell Beth that they seen that she was almost dying, so they picked her up, even though she says she remembers Daryl being there for her. They said they didn't see him, but they took her as fast as possible to make sure she didn't die. which most people end up dying because they can't use enough medicine to keep them alive. The doctor seems to be the only guy that's actually nice, seeing that he actually buys her food, not making her have to pay for it. Dawn, that's actually a police officer, wants to save everyone, but the doctor explains that this dude's too far gone. Beth ends up meeting this nice dude named Noah, as they seem like they'd be a good team together. And by team, I mean this dude knows everything about the building and where to go in and out from, so Beth knows he's definitely gonna be essential. She ends up lying to Dawn, telling her that nothing's wrong and she's actually enjoying the place, which is sad considering this dude sexually assaults every woman he gets a chance to and nobody does nothing about it. Like, bro, you're disgusting. Anyways, from the doctor's perspective, we know that Dawn doesn't do too much about him. Beth asks how they have all these vegetables, and they end up showing the top roof with all the plants they've been growing. Wow, I'm pretty sure this is Atlanta, isn't it? Anyways, the doctor ends up telling Beth to put some medicine to one of the patients, which actually kills him. While Dawn's being detective, she ends up saying that Noah slipped up and lied to her, so now she wants to know what's really going on with him too. But Beth still holds her ground. We see that she actually ended up beating up the little kid, but now Noah says he's ready to go. So as soon as they get a new patient in, as Beth's plan was about to go good, the sexual assaulter ends up coming in. But he gets taken care of pretty quick. Noah and Beth end up making a tiny rope as they go down the elevator shaft. They both end up making it, seeing all of the bodies that they've thrown down that they didn't want, as they finally make it out and run. But we can see that Noah can't run too well, so Beth goes and takes out some of the walkers. But we see that the walkers end up getting shot down, and they know who it is, so Beth tries to run as Noah's already out, but gets caught. The leader and Beth end up getting into a big fight, as Dawn knocks Beth out. And lovely, she gets more stitches. But Beth's pretty smart, figuring out that the reason why the doctor wanted her to kill that man was because he would have took his job because he was a better and experienced doctor. But as Beth and the doctor end up staring at each other, another patient comes in. We know that Beth's gonna care about this patient, and hopefully she makes sure the doctors don't kill her. And we're back with episode 5, seeing that Abraham, Glenn, and the others are on their way to Washington. But of course, 20 minutes into a conversation, their wheel ends up busting as the car flips and crashes. We end up cutting to a flashback scene as we see Abraham murdering some dude with a can, as Glenn and the others are trying to get out of the truck right now. Abraham busts down the door and they get out and kill all the walkers, while the cuts he got from killing that dude with the can end up reopening. Abraham almost loses that he wants to go there, but Glenn reassures him that we're all going to the Washington and they all want to listen to him. So of course you know they're about to go. And Abraham has another flashback seeing that he was looking for his family, but they don't seem too happy to see him. Abraham ends up explaining to Glenn that they've been trying to get to Washington for so long and that a lot of people have died in the way. But now that their team's finally this strong, they're gonna make it. Next day, they end up seeing a fire truck, so you already know what they're going to take next. They end up having a bunch of walkers to fight, so they take them out with a funner approach. Abraham loses his family as he sees a sign saying, "Don't try to find us." But of course, he ended up running out to find her, as we see that he's fixed the truck. Maggie says that he's not just important because he knows how to stop the apocalypse, but he's important because he's a part of their team. But Abraham can't start the truck, so now they're gonna have to be on foot. They literally see millions of walkers in their way. As Abraham thinks that the fire truck will make it through, Glenn tells him no, and that's suicide. So Abraham and Glenn about get into another fight until Eugene says he was lying. And that's where everyone drops everything to hear what he has to say. He says he knows a lot of people died getting him to Washington, but he only did it because he knew that they wouldn't keep him around if he didn't. Eugene thinks that it was a smart approach, but it doesn't seem like it got him anywhere good. My boy just got knocked out, and falling on concrete face first doesn't feel good. Abraham sits there as he can't even think about what just happened. As in his flashback, he goes outside and finds out that his family died, and that's when him and Eugene first met, and Abraham ended up killing all of these walkers. As Abraham's just about to leave Eugene, Eugene tells him that he has a cure to stop the zombie apocalypse. And we're back with episode 6. We start with Carol leaving when Rick made her leave after everything she'd done at the prison. Maybe a couple miles off, she ended up stopping as she cries, not knowing where to go. She ended up finding a place that she secured and ended up going to sleep. But I guess she was trying to come back home, but as soon as Carol got back to the prison, it was already on fire. Now we cut back to Daryl and Carol trying to look for the car that took Beth. While I was right, they are going back to Atlanta. Following the people, they need a place to stay for the night, so they end up finding bunk beds and going to sleep. Next morning, we cut to Carol looking at Daryl burning bodies, which makes her think in her head of how she had to kill the girls and seen the smoke of Terminus. They end up keep searching to see if they can find any whereabouts where they went, until they're about to leave and Daryl sees something through a sniper scope, which ends up being the truck. But of course when they turn around, they end up finding Noah. He makes them drop everything until walkers start getting in their way, so they end up trying to chase after them. And while they're running, Carol keeps having flashbacks of when she burnt those bodies. Daryl and Carol end up finally getting to the truck, but for some odd reason, as soon as they get in, a crowd of walkers end up showing up. So with a little bit of help from the walkers, they end up getting pushed off. They survive the crash and don't end up getting hurt as they walk away. Daryl and Carol keep looking around as they find Noah again. Daryl tries to stop him as a shelf falls on him. He asks for their help, but we can definitely see that Daryl doesn't care. But Carol does, so obviously Daryl kills the walker. And we come back to Carol after she undressed herself from being a walker, just showing us everything that Carol's done crazy so far. Daryl and Noah actually end up talking and they figure out that they know where Beth is. The car ends up showing up, so as they try to run for the car, Noah ends up falling, so Daryl waits for him, which makes him too late to see Carol get ran over by a car and the people pick her up to save her. So this is the friend that Daryl made. But thanks to Daryl, it looks like next episode we're gonna find out where Beth is. And we're back with episode 7, seeing that Sasha and the others are actually making reinforcements to the inside of the church, as well as protecting it from the outside. Everyone's just vibing until we see that Gabriel's getting a little sweaty, as he starts to scrap at the floor and tries to dig his way into something. Now we come back to Beth and the others as Carol's knocked out and not doing too well, while Glenn and the others are trying to figure out what to do about Abraham, while Rick and the others end up making a plan, while Carl tries to help Gabriel learn how to use weapons. Beth ends up hearing them talk about how they're going to let Carol off of the drugs, in which Beth says if he didn't use so much electricity, they'd probably save some. But Dawn doesn't care as they take her off of the medicines, and she says if she doesn't get better on her own, that they're just going to kill her. Beth goes to the doctor as she ended up stealing the medicine key and asks him what medicine she'd need to save that woman's life. While Rosita shows Glenn and Tara how Eugene showed her how to make a water filter. So the people from the hospital end up hearing gunshots and Noah running. But little did they notice he wasn't shooting at any walkers. Tells them to put their guns down if they want to live, which they do until another car pulls up and tries to pick them up. But Sasha ends up shooting out the tire as the team run after him. Daryl ends up fighting his own dude as he hits him with a walker's head, but Rick stops that real quick. They tell him that they're going to hold them as prisoner and use them to switch out with Beth, which the police officers think will work. So Beth gets the plan to give an old man some strawberries so he'll fake cough for her. So while he's acting like he's dying, Beth ends up stealing the medicine for Carol. She runs quickly back to Carol as she gets all the drugs put into her, which is crazy because basically Beth just saved Carol's life. So while Rick and the others leave, Sasha and the dude end up talking about how he almost had to kill one of his friends, and he says that his zombified body is still walking outside and he really wants it just dead. So Sasha asks where the walker is, in which he knocks her out and ends up making a run for it. And we're back with the mid-season finale, seeing Rick run after the dude that knocked out Sasha. but Rick ends up getting a car being faster than the dude running. So as soon as Rick sees him, he tries to stop him, but just ends up running him over, stopping him. But since this dude ran away, he's useless to Rick, so Rick kills him. Now we cut back to Gabriel as we see he went to the church that all of the cannibals were at first. While he gets to see the last bit of Bob's foot, he starts freaking out, but even worse, the glass shatters as the walkers come at him. Gabriel, being hurt on his foot, ends up trying to run back to the church, which we see that the walkers were right beside of Gabriel. Carl, Michonne, Gabriel all barricade themselves in a room, while the hole Gabriel inconveniently dug up is a way out. The walkers end up hoarding the church. Daryl ends up asking where the other hostage went, in which Rick tells him that he had to kill him. But also, Rick's got a plan for the other two. And Beth figures out that Dawn and that one dude were actually good friends until he changed. So Gabriel, Michonne, Judith, and Carl end up looking as the church is infested. But just in time, Abraham and all the others end up coming back, where they all hug and get reacquainted. Michonne spits the good news to Maggie that Beth's alive and they're going to get her. But Beth and Dawn ended up sitting and talking as the one dude ends up popping in. Him and Dawn end up getting into a big fight as Dawn kicks him and Beth ends up pushing him over the elevator shaft. What a way to go. And after Beth was with Dawn, she ended up sleeping, waiting till Carol wakes up. While Tyrese and Sasha are watching Rick and the others as they make their plan, Rick ends up getting the other officers to pull up, as he tells them he just wants to make an agreement that he'll give him 2 of his people for 2 of the people that he wants back. So they take him to the hospital where they actually see Beth's getting ready, and for some reason hiding scissors. What? Beth and Carol end up finally getting to go back as the other 2 switch sides, but Dawn ends up making Noah have to stay if they get Beth and Carol. With no choice, Beth ends up crying, hugging Noah. Dawn wants him to go. And as Beth looks Dawn in the face one more time, Beth stabs her with those scissors and Dawn blows Beth's head out. Oh, she just pissed the wrong crew off. Seconds later, Daryl blows her head off. Everyone's about to get into a shooting rampage as they end up stopping, and Rick tells if anybody wants to come back with them that they're allowed to, as he cries knowing that Beth's finally gone. Abraham, all the others end up taking the fire truck to the hospital, as Maggie was too late as Daryl comes out with Beth's corpse. Like, Maggie's really having it. She literally lost her dad and her sister. Where will our team go and what lays ahead of them? Find out next episode.